Hey everyone, we'll be starting in next 3 minutes. So if you want, you can start making your way back to the event area. 3 minutes, we'll start. If you're in the kitchen, make your way back to the event area, please. Folks who are here, is this loud enough? Is the speaker loud enough? No? No, yeah? Hi everyone, please start making your way back to the event area. We'll be starting soon. And call everybody back from kitchen to the event area. There are some seats on this side. If you're still standing in the back and you'd want to move on this side, feel free to use these seats. Just don't move them because they're for the employees of super.com. There are a couple seats in the absolute front if you want to take those. Great, thanks a lot once again. We did have some delays, not some 30 minutes delays, thanks to lots of traffic on the road. TTC got canceled from Union. I had to walk, you had to walk. Most of our organizing team had to walk and we ended up getting delayed. We couldn't set up the stuff here for live streaming. But thank you for the patience and thank you for finishing all the pizza. Now you don't have anything for networking session. All the best. Let's start. I think this is repetitive, but for folks who are new, let's talk about who are we. We are TorontoJS. We are a volunteer-run non-profit organization. We aim to support everybody in their journey to learn and share what they're learning, and in technology and by extension in software and design. While we're talking about people who are new, how many of you are attending it for this event for the first time, or any event for the first time? Raise of hands, please. Oh, great. Okay. And how many of you have attended this before? Oh, good. So we have more people who are new this time. Good to know. Thank you so much. As you know, we are a volunteer-run organization, and all of us volunteer here. None of us get paid. That's how we are able to keep these events free for you. So we are run by folks like you who come to our events, folks like our speakers who speak at our events, and volunteers like ourselves and our organizing team. The Code of Conduct, TorontoJS Code of Conduct is in effect. You can read more about what Code of Conduct is on our website. Link is given here, torontojs.com/p/code of conduct. Basically, we do not tolerate abuse, harassment, or intellectual elitism in any form. If you think you're experiencing any of this, reach out to us either on Slack or through email mentioned here. And a few words about our sponsors, DragonflyDB, Sanity, and Super.com. I'm probably going to read what we have for them. Super is a sponsor who gives us a space month after month. And if you have seen our events for this whole year, we are constantly hosting at Super. So big thanks to Super. What they do is basically a travel super app. If you have not already seen, you can go to super.com, look at the app, and you'll be able to find cashbacks, deals, and everything related to travel. They're based right out of here, out of Toronto, and they've been giving our space for past couple of years. Then we have DragonflyDB, which is a drop-in Redis replacement built from scratch for modern cloud workloads. 25 times higher throughput, 12 times lower latency, and up to 80% lower cost. Fully compatible with Redis APIs and tools, so no code changes needed. Try it out on dragonflydb.io. Then we have Sanity, which is the content operating system, a fully customizable all-code backend for content-driven websites and apps. For the builders and creators. Check them out on sanity.io. At the expense of sounding like a radio ad person, I want to give as much visibility to our sponsors as possible. Getting back to us, we are 13,000 members strong on meetup.com. Out of those, 6,700 people are on Slack, and almost 1,700 people on Guild, and we are run by 50 plus volunteers who do different kinds of events. So if you're new to us, this is not just one event we do. We do a bunch of other things that you might want to try out, and if you enjoy. So look at our website, join our Slack, and see what interests you. Tonight, you will be seeing some faces, like mine probably a lot, but there are lots of other folks on the ground who are running this show. This slide does not have a couple of faces. I'll take their names, but I have myself, we have Manvinder, we have Devesh, and we have Tom. You might have met Tom on the front checking you in, or Manvinder checking you in. Devesh is around in the back. And the person who I forgot to put in was Ahmed. Ahmed is our live streaming volunteer who has spearheaded and started this live streaming effort. Today's agenda is supposed to open door and start by 6:25, but you know what happened. The next is 3 talks, one after the other. First talk is by Zhou, second is from Amir, and third is from Mackenzie. And then we have networking, whatever time we get for it. And at 9 p.m., we have to be out of here. So this space closes at 9. So take yourself out by 9. Elevators are slow, so just keep that into account when you're trying to move out. Okay, one of the last things I wanted to talk about, that the fact that we are now live streaming all of our events, and this right now is live on our YouTube. So if you haven't already, you can go to youtube.com/TorontoJS meetup, find our account, subscribe to it, share it with your friends. We've invested some resources into making this happen, and we believe that this will help all the speakers, all the events that we are hosting become historically relevant. When technology changes, we can share these things with more people who couldn't even make to this event. So this is an effort we are doing. We will really be grateful if you subscribe it yourself or share it with your friends who can subscribe. This will, as any artistic endeavor, for the lack of a better word, our drug is when you like us or when you give feedback on what we should do better. So keep that coming. And with that, if you're interested in volunteering, you can join us on Slack and let us know what you'd want to do. As I said, there are multiple different events that we run. So whichever event you want to volunteer for, you can do that. TorontoJS.com is our website for everything. I'm not sure if the QR code works, but that will be it from my side. I'll give it up to Zhou. Thank you.
Is it good? Hello, sound check, it's good? Everybody can hear me? Awesome. So, yeah, welcome, and welcome to my talk as well. Welcome to TorontoJS. And my name is Zhou, and I work for DragonflyDB. But Amir, he's very strict. Even sponsors need to apply for talks, so I don't get this for free. Today I'm going to be talking about how to use standard APIs for modern web dev. And here we go. This is the slide that I kind of don't want to do because I'm a total introvert. And I'm also a developer, even though you see I'm using a Windows, having some like pretentious stickers, but I do development work before Dragonfly. And my community manager, she insists me of doing this slide, which is about myself. You can see people can get very self-involved, right? So that's me. I stay home a lot. I travel for things like TorontoJS. I travel for things like K-pop concerts that are not available in Toronto. And that's my gist. And then I also like spicy food a lot. My hometown, this is what we call it the hot pot, and I like it a lot. If you are my friend and you cannot eat spicy, we can go with half-half. But the half-half in my hometown is actually just a quarter of the pot, so that's the best I can do. Cool, that's it. Oh, the slide is gone. And again, I work for a company called Dragonfly. DragonflyDB is a Redis compatible, multi-threaded, high-performance in-memory data store. So if you use Redis and you want to switch to Dragonfly, that's the same code. However you use Redis, it's the same way that you should use, just much more performant, right? So Dragonfly is built from the ground up. So it's not a fork of Redis. And it's the same API, same developer experience. We're just like much more performant. We can handle millions of requests per second. More on that later. Cool. So for today's talk, nowadays I cannot give a presentation without any AI in there, right? So there has to be some of it. So, but I will keep it short, right? So for AI and machine learning, we have like many things today, and they're awesome. I use them a lot during my blog post writing. I use them to help. But at the end of the day, what exactly are they, right? So this is an example of how you would use a vector database, right? And at the end of the day, it's just you put the content into a model, and then it becomes a bunch of vector, like a bunch of numbers as matrices, and you store it in a vector database. Dragonfly can be a vector database as well. And then when you query, you do the same thing. You use that model, and you do like a similarity search, basically, right? So to simplify that, it's a prediction, right? You put some features of a user, and you feed it to like a model, like a vector database, and you try to retrieve something, and you decide what's the best thing to serve to that particular user, right? So it's just a prediction at its essence, right? Like all those large models and stuff, right? So it's just that they make the prediction so good right now, and that's why when you use an LLM, you feel like you're talking to a people, because they made the prediction like so good. But on the other hand, as a backend developer, I also am looking for certainty in my life, right? So I love the prediction part, like the probabilistic part of AI, but on the other hand, I want to sleep very well as well at night as backend developers, right? So that's something I care about a lot, and I also work for a database company. We want our customers to sleep well. We want our engineering team to sleep well at night as well. So here's a story that I would like to share with you from my friend. So he worked at the company, and they have a CI/CD pipeline, and it works perfectly. The only thing that I'm not happy about is that throughout the pipeline, everything's perfect. There's the last step where he needs to copy over the release notes and paste it somewhere, and then continue. So that's the YOLO part. Copying mostly it's fine, but imagine you're on GitHub, the text is not marked down. It's a mess, right? So for most of the time it works, but it requires a human being there to be there to do that copying and then finish the CI/CD, and then eventually the software is deployed. So he approached me back then. He was like, "Yo, Joe, I want to automate this." I was like, "Sure, you can do that." And he's a front-end, mostly front-end developer. And I wondered like why you approached me, right? By then I was using a language called Go, and I really like it. And sometimes it's like too verbose, like you write a lot of repetitive code in Go, right? But the good part is that when you compile the Go program, the result is a self-contained binary that you can just double-click on your computer, and it will work forever. That's the beauty of it. You don't need, remember, what I said is that you compile the Go program, not containerize it, just the program itself, right? And you put it somewhere, it works forever. And then, my friend, he was like, okay, I want to learn Go, and I want to try it out, and I heard it's quite stable, so that's what he did, right? So he did that, and then he fixed that YOLO part of the CI/CD pipeline, and he left the company, and now it's been 5 years. Nobody has ever touched that piece of code at all. And I doubt if anyone on their team even know how to compile the binary again, but they just continue to use that, and they never YOLO again. Cool, so that's a story I want to share. Now back to JavaScript, right? So I'm not here to compare languages. I just want to point out the things that I've seen in the past years of my development experience, right? So JavaScript is king, is one of the most, I would say the most popular language out there, but it's also flawed, right? Because if you know, it was designed and implemented all within 10 days, right? So there are some like built-in flaw with it, but the community is also great. We have the brightest minds in this community work on tools for like bundling, for runtime, and everything, libraries and everything else, right? So it's the best, and also it's kind of flawed, and it's also popular. Cool. By a show of hands, how many of you have used or heard of this library? Coding Desk? Nobody? Yes, you're supposed to not know it because it is not a application developer facing library, right? So this library is used to do those polyfill stuff, like it enhances like the runtime, adds like different methods to the primitive type stuff like that, right? So that's why people call it a standard library of JavaScript. It's quite important. Even if you don't use it, go back to your node packages and search for it. It has to be some dependency. It has to be a dependency of some of the other packages you use for sure, right? So another story. What happened is that in 2029, one of the core maintainers of the core JS library, he made a mistake. So he hit someone on the street by using his motorcycle. So it was a tragedy. And he has to spend around like 26 months in jail. So when that happens, people are worried, right? We haven't heard of this library, but it's being used everywhere. It's being downloaded like millions of times per week, right? So people are scared, like, okay, what should we do next without this guy, right? And it turned out that they were able to find additional maintainers for this project, so it's maintained, and the project itself is going on, like everything's fine, right? So that's not even, I'm really sorry for the tragedy, but that's not the most scary part when you lose a core developer of a very important library, right? So what is more scary to me is that when I told this story to one of my friends who is also a JavaScript developer by then, and she said, I feel so sorry that a standard library may not be maintained anymore. It can cause like chaoses and messed up situations for the community, right? So to me, the scariest part is that for most of the languages out there, like Go, like Java, whatever, C#, C++, they don't have a standard library. They have the standard library, which is shipped with the language itself. And JavaScript straight up just didn't have that, right? So if you think about it, it's popular, it's great, but the language itself at the very beginning doesn't have a standard, doesn't have the standard library that is supposed to be shipped with the language, right? So whenever you code and whatever library you use, maybe spend more time to get to know like what really you're using, right? And there's a similar situation of the runtimes, right? We have V8. By a show of hands, who know what V8 is? Awesome. What about SpiderMonkey? Awesome. What about JavaScript Core? Awesome. The name, you see, the name is a little bit confusing as well. We have this Core JS, there's JavaScript Core, right? So V8 is the JavaScript engine that's shipped with the Chrome browser, and SpiderMonkey for Mozilla, and JavaScript Core for Safari, right? So because JavaScript runs in a browser, the browser has to have an engine in there that is capable of executing JavaScript code, right? Cool. That's on the browser side. On the server side, we also have Node, Dino, by the same guy. Maybe he will do a third project called Done eventually, so that everything is done properly. And Bun, okay. Again, excuse me, by a show of hands, who can tell me the exact definition of Node? When you do Node, yeah, okay, we have someone. Yeah. Yes. So for Node is a way, is a runtime for you to run JavaScript outside of the browser. That's correct. But how did the team achieve that, right? So maybe you know the answer too. So what happened is that the team, or Ryan Doe, the guy, he took the V8 code, right? V8 is part of Chrome, but it's also open source. He took the V8 code down and made some modification, added some, like, the engine is in C++, so he made it some like modification to the V8 engine. And then on top of that, he wrote a kind of like a standard library to handle stuff like file security. That becomes Node, right? So Node is derived from V8. And I asked this question as an interview question to many people just to test if they know, like, really what are you using in your hands, right? So that's a little bit of history there as well. Cool. So now we have this many runtime. What if I want my JavaScript code to run on all of them flawlessly, like the Go program I talked about earlier, right? What if I don't change it? I don't change anything. I leave it there for like 5 years and it still runs the same way, right? That's something I always think about a lot. So there's a framework I discovered recently, or like a year ago, like not very too recent. It's called Hono, and the thing about, so this framework tries to be the successor of the Express framework. The difference is that it's all built on standard APIs. So it uses like the fetch API, the standard request and response object instead of reinventing the wheels, right? So everything is standardized. That means that if you write a piece of code in Hono using the framework, because it's using all standardized APIs, right? In theory, it should run on all the runtimes that I mentioned before, or at least the server-side runtimes, right? So I was under the impression, so I give it a shot. So I made a blog post on that. So I coded first, and then I explained it. It's on my company's blog. And yeah, if you're interested, you can check it out as well. What I discovered is that it's almost true. It's not quite true, but it's almost true. Right? So I encountered this problem when I was coding it. It's about, so I want to generate a new ID, and then I want to base 64 it basically. So I want to encode it, right? So with Bond, you can use this form, which is, you call the toBase64 method directly on the byte array, and that just does the trick. But when I try to run this piece of code using Node, it just doesn't know what I'm talking about, right? So I did some research. I used AI, of course, and then it tells me that you should create a buffer first, and then do the toString base64. So I was wondering, like, why that's the case. Like, Hono, you said that you're using standard APIs across the board. Why I'm getting hiccups like this, right? So I checked. It turned out that this has nothing to do with Hono, but Bond and Node as the runtime, they implement things a little bit differently. So the bottom way is the standard way, which in this case works for Node, works for Bond, but the middle portion of the code, it's something that Bond added. So it's not available in Node, not available in Deno, not available in V8, right? So it's trying to help me. I mean, I like the first form better. I like it more, but it's not part of the standard Node implementation. So that's one example. Another example is that after I finish all the database and endpoints, right, I need to run the server. So for Bond, I just need to export this object, and then it's able to realize that, okay, this object contains like the port and your actual app, and it will boot up my server, right? And again, it didn't work for Node. So I did some research, and it turns out that for Node, you need to call like the serve function explicitly. Again, Bond is trying to help you, but there are differences like this that you need to pay attention to if you try to run your code across different runtimes. Awesome. That's one example. And then this is one of my favorite library. It's called Zhou. And what this library does is that it does the validation, right? So I, as a database geek, I care about whatever is being written down to the database a lot. It has to be accurate. Although we do have some constraint, some validation on the database side, it's better to have to have the application do its own validation as well, right? So Zhou is like one of the best in there. So I tried it. This is how you can use Zhou if you're building like a URL shortener. That's how you can use it. So I'm happy about it in general, but then I heard that people talking about, oh, Zhou is not performing well. Like if you give it a gigantic JSON object to validate, it will slow down. It will slow your whole application down, right? So which means that people start to create like different alternatives. Like there's validbot, there's archetype. So now I don't know again like which one is the best. And it's always kind of like this, right? Like in the JavaScript community, there are a ton of stuff you haven't heard of, like after graduation, and they just come to you. So the good thing is that recently the authors of all the 3 libraries, they joined together and they try to standardize it. And I feel so happy about it. So they made a spec, and on top of the spec, they also made like an interface that all the other validation frameworks can use. And once a framework implements this specification, you have the adapter to call it the same way. So from this point on, if you include standard schema in your code, you don't have to worry about which validation library you're actually using, because they are standardized. And that's very important. Cool. So yeah, that's about it. I've finished showing my JavaScript code. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that in such a powerful language, sometimes we get lost. There are like millions of runtime. There are like probably 100,000 of validation libraries. There are probably like a new framework every day, or like every 2 hours, right? So among those great tools, some are good, some are not. Among those tools, what should we use, right? I suppose that it's a good practice that we can find standardized API in your code so that you know that it's more robust. You know that it works today, it will work in 5 years from now. Cool. That's about JavaScript. Then I have just 2 more things to share. One is those are all databases things if you're backend, right? So TidyB is one of Dragonfly's partner. It's actually a Chinese company, but they have customers like Pinterest, like LinkedIn. And what they do is that they make a distributed version of MySQL. Why MySQL? Again, very similar story to JavaScript, right? Because it is one of the most popular databases out there. And TidyB just choose to be compatible with MySQL so that when the teams do the switch, there's minimum code change. It works the same way as they work. And similar story to Dragonfly. As I mentioned, Dragonfly is compatible to Redis, but the architecture is much better. So we can handle like millions of operations per second on a single machine, and up to 1 terabyte of memory cache on a single server, right? So you can use Dragonfly to replace a Redis cluster. And when you do that, you also don't need to change any code. And a standalone Dragonfly can replace a Redis cluster. If you go with the clustered Dragonfly version, the clustered version of Dragonfly, based on our internal test, we were able to handle 100 million requests per second and about 100 terabytes of memory. Remember, this is in-memory database, right? Data store. So it's not on disk. So it's practically limitless. Cool. Yeah, that's my talk. I guess what I'm trying to say is that, yeah, use standard APIs. Oh, sorry, I missed a point. Why Redis, right? There's no standard for Redis, but it's kind of like the de facto standard in the industry, where when people look for like in-memory store, looking for a cache, they go with the Redis API, right? That's why Dragonfly, we choose to be compatible with the API, but we don't change for the sake of change, right? We keep the API, which is the good part, and then we replace the underneath architecture. That's why that's why it's good. Cool. Now it's time to pull up your phone and scan the QR code if you're interested. And that's it. Thank you so much.
If you have any questions, I think we have a couple of minutes to take those.
Oh, yes, questions about JavaScript, databases? Or I know you're shy, like me. You can catch me later as well. Yeah, good. Awesome.
Great, thank you so much, Zhou. Next, we'll have Amir set up.
Yeah?
Sorry, buddy.
Good?
Mostly on this side, right? So okay, excellent.
Oh, is this supposed to work? Usually this doesn't work. If we just go with the HDMI, I think that usually works better. HDMI, yeah. Cool. Hi. Excuse me. Yeah, hello, my name is Amir. I'm a senior analyst slash data scientist. I work in the healthcare industry. I also do AI ethics and safety consulting as a practice personally. I've started. And I do give these talks once in a while about AI consciousness, safety, ethics, that sort of stuff. And today's talk is going to be about 2 pathways to treating AI well, and I will tell you what that means exactly, essentially. We'll talk about the background, a little bit of the 2 approaches that I have in mind, moral considerations, as well as strategic cooperations, and then we'll open up each section. It's not going to be a very long talk, so we'll have some time for discussions. If you have a burning desire to know about whether AI will destroy us or not, that will be a time to ask your questions. Cool. So essentially, I'll be talking about 2 different, again, pathways of whether AI, excuse me, I have a sore throat and my allergy has flared up. That's why I have to keep clearing my throat. But essentially, 2 pathways as to why we should treat AI well. One is a moral pathway, which is essentially based on the assumption that AIs will eventually, it seems that they will eventually become sentient, or they will develop consciousness. And so it's important to treat them ethically, just because anything that's conscious, we kind of have that obligation to treat them ethically, just like animals or humans. And the second one is the strategic pathway, where essentially, even if AI systems lack feelings or consciousness or anything like that, which a lot of people believe that's the case, and that will continue to be the case, so there are still pragmatic reasons as to why we should really care about this matter. It's just for human safety. So we better actually care about certain rights for AI, because otherwise our own safety will be kind of jeopardized. All right, cool. Starting with moral considerations. So I'll be talking about two different types of kind of AI, I guess, products or generations of kind of models that people are working on. One of them being whole brain emulations, or WBEs. These are essentially kind of aiming to simulate. Has anyone heard of these before, like WBE at all? No? Yes? Cool. So these are essentially supposed to kind of simulate human brain structure, kind of replicated neuron by neuron, right? And the aim is not to just kind of replicate the behavior, but to have the internal structure kind of duplicated. And the thought is that that's going to lead to more like a digital person that's similar to the biological brain that they emulate. And likely, what the hope is that this will lead to like kind of traits such as consciousness that come from the biological brain. So it's a very materialistic, neuroscience kind of motivated perspective about consciousness, right? So if we replicate the biological brain or scan it neuron by neuron and kind of create it that way, we're going to have traits such as consciousness. And a heads up, we don't have any like full-blooded human-scale WBEs yet. What we do have so far is worms and fruit flies' brains having been kind of emulated into these like little, well, like millions of neurons actually, but still, like compared to human brains, really nothing. But the thought is that, or the hope is that within the next few decades, probably we're going to be able to have enough technology to actually fully replicate human brains. So anyway, this is the whole WBE thing that I wanted to talk about. And then there's a paper recently. So this talk, what I didn't mention is that this talk, I'll be talking about some recent research by mostly philosophers, but also people who work in law, as well as people who work in AI safety. So this is like their research that I'm kind of opening up mostly for the most part. There's my own reflections as well, but essentially these guys, Bradley and Saad, they have written a paper about hypothetical WBE, right? They call it Emma in that paper. And it's, what they argue is that the alignment techniques used to kind of create this WBE, they risk severe ethical harm, right? So, for example, memory deletion to erase certain undesirable traits, as well as conditioning to force obedience and confining AIs to misleading simulations. So the idea is that so let's say we get to a point where we create these WBEs where we actually, they're like human scale, human brain replicated, right? Right? The thought is that the kind of alignment techniques that we currently use in the industry, the standard alignment techniques that we use, if we use it for these things, they're going to have basically as if like we're torturing them, right? Because like if they have consciousness, assuming they will, it's as if like we are implementing the same techniques on humans or animals or anything else that has consciousness. And that's just like outright torture, right? So those are kind of ethical considerations there. Yeah. Okay, so that's the one piece that we have, which is about the WBEs so far. The other piece is about large language models, right? So large language models are in brain simulations as we know, but they are increasingly showing emergent behaviors such as complex reasoning, multi-step problem solving, and adaptive dialogue generation. So for example, I mean, this is just like, everyone knows this stuff, so really just like a little review of like GPT-4, for example, demonstrating coding abilities, self-correction responses, and so on. And what matters is that they're starting to have even limited forms of theory of mind reasoning, right? Where I have given talks elsewhere that, so according to the best accounts of what it means to have a mind in like certain theories in philosophy and psychology, what we have is that there's signs of these things starting to grow consciousness or like having minds, right? Which is a topic a lot of people are very uncomfortable with, and that's okay. But the thing is that if you specialize in philosophy, which I do, my PhD is in philosophy, I didn't mention that, I think. But essentially, so there's a huge literature on this stuff that's now growing, and the people are actually kind of referring to very prominent accounts of consciousness or mind, that the idea is that these things are starting to show signs of kind of getting to that space. Yeah, but even without human-like structures, such as WBEs, so yes, like I said, they're showing signs of reasoning and rationality as well. So that would be specifically for reasoning models, which is like a different generation of language models. And if again, so if LLMs or RLMs gain sentience-like traits, the alignments via deception or coercion and so on, the same kind of techniques that we used in the hypothetical scenario for WBEs, which is again the standard techniques that we use or people use, I don't use them, but people use in the AI safety space for alignment, that again, we're gonna have some problems, right? So like ethically, bottom line, these two types of products that we have, so language models as well as like WBEs, the whole thought so far, what I've said is that at some point, people predict to be, there should be a threshold that we pass it, and then at some point, the techniques that we currently use to kind of create these models and to align them to human values and interests, that's going to be problematic ethically. So that's the ethical side of things, right? So that's the first path. So I said there's going to be two paths that we're going to talk about when it comes to safety, when it comes to like why we should treat AI well. Second one is more strategic, right? This is like, must be more acceptable to the majority of people, right? Yeah, a lot of people, again, aren't comfortable with the idea of these things becoming conscious and so on. So some people have argued that there's like very pragmatic reasons that we should care about treating AI well, right? So again, so some people, and I'll tell you who, predict that AI and humans are facing an asymmetric power dynamic over time, according to a game theoretic perspective, where it's like a strategic games where humans and AI will try to dominate the whole space. So far, humans seem to have been successful. I mean, we are creating AI, right? And we do have control, looks like, over what we're creating so far. But AI may surpass that. Like, again, the concern about the whole, I'm not here to say that that's going to happen or it's the end of the world or anything, but just like the whole premise of AI safety is to make sure that wouldn't happen, right? So the whole practice is that. But from a game theoretic perspective, that means that the possibility of that happening means that the AI would dominate that space. And these guys, Salib and Goldstein, they have argued in a recent paper as well that we should sort of start collaborating with AI. We should set out to have rights for them, because without cooperation, the risk of the kind of winner-take-all logic will rise. And yeah, so humans or AI, one of them will eventually try to take the control of everything. And the kind of model, and I'll get to the details of it in a minute, but the kind of model that these people are comparing this to is the international relations, right? So basically, countries, let's say, that have trade relations together, it's very less likely, or sort of like relations together, it's a lot less likely that they will engage in some sort of conflict. And the idea, bottom line, before we get to some of the details, is that, yeah, I see some unhappy face. Yeah, I mean, I guess that the past few years, we have seen proof against that. But I mean, if you compare it to countries that don't have any relationships together, that's a lot easier to engage in conflict, I guess. Anyway. Yeah, so the idea is that giving AI legal rights and economic incentives will lead to more peaceful future. Onto the details of Salib and Goldstein. So they specifically argue that we should grant AIs private law rights, such as the ability to own property, to enter into contracts, and to seek protection through tort law, right? I mean, this might sound a little bit cringy, but they actually argue, I mean, this is like a 70-page paper, that this seems like a better way, again, assuming we're happy with the model, like economic and collaborative relationships between different states and different countries, right? Would that historically at least been like a reason to avoid conflicts? Yeah, that's the kind of idea here. And yeah, so rights incentivize peaceful coexistence by offering nonviolent alternatives to achieve goals and reducing incentives for manipulation or rebellion. Yeah, same idea with economically invested AIs that are more stable partners, essentially. So the second path, therefore, is, so the first path, just to kind of summarize what we had because we're almost there. The first path was about the the ethical approach to looking at AI advancements, where the thought is that, according to some people, we're going to hit a threshold soon enough in the near future where these things, either language models or whole brain emulations, WBEs, or any other sort of breakthrough technology that we still don't know, the trend seems to be in a direction where these things are going to get like really smart, sophisticated, maybe have consciousness, have a theory of mind of some sort. If that's the case, just by very basic accounts of ethics, it seems like a good idea to just give them rights. Otherwise, it's as if like we are torturing things with consciousness, right? So like the kind of alignment techniques that are standard today, they're not going to be applicable. Well, I mean, they will be applicable, but it's not necessarily good ones. Second one was, we don't care if these things are conscious. We know that they are getting more sophisticated. And even if we're not concerned about the ethical rights of these things that, might sound very nice and interesting, but more like practically speaking, it's just more to our benefit, like for human safety, essentially. Like we give these things certain rights in order to avoid conflicts, hence increasing or like granting human safety as a result. So yeah, these two pathways essentially overlap, right? They both recommend avoiding unnecessary harm to AI systems, whether to prevent ethical injustice, if AI is sentient or conscious, or to avoid provoking dangerous behavior if AI is strategic or even non-sentient. Right? And both of these approaches criticize the current practices, of AI alignment. A lot of the techniques that are used, that are being, not all of it, some of the techniques that are very dominant and are being used in that space, they essentially, either way, so either these things are conscious and like we should care ethically, or not, we care about our own safety. Either way, the techniques that we're using, they're not going to be as useful as we might hope for. Yeah, and the risks of ignoring this, first one would be ethical catastrophe, right? So if we ignore these things, we will risk accidentally creating cruelty at scale. Essentially, it's like torturing at a scale. And the other one is like a strategic catastrophe, where we're going to jeopardize our own safety by ignoring that possibility. And worst case scenario is that we fail at both of these, and it's going to lead to some sort of unhappy ending for us. Thank you very much. That's my talk. This is my website, if you want to check it out. And this is my podcast. I host a podcast. Recently, I launched it. If you want to check it out, that it's going to take you to Spotify. And thanks. Any questions or thoughts? Yeah.
Thank you. That was very nice. You talked about a lot like unethicalness and like potential harms to AI. But when I think about harm in like the human sense, at the end, it comes down to producing some physiological senses towards our body. So like when you're mean to someone, you feel hurt. There's a pain signal within the body. And I don't see how this biological chemical response be like replicated into an AI. And even if we talk about like inhibiting desire, like even desire itself is like a physiological signal that happiness or potential happiness, and that all correlates to a physiological response. So I'm trying to see how like what's your take in like if this machine or thing, if they cannot feel these signals, what's stopping us from being like mean to them?
Right, good question. I think a couple points there. First of all, I'm not sure if harm for even humans is not always necessarily physiological, right? So there's a lot of like emotional, psychological harm.
And those would, sorry to cut you off, but those would at the end of the day be like physiological too, right? Emotional harm.
Sure, you could translate it that way if that's like your perspective, and that's fine. But let's go with that, right? So let's say it is at the end of the day some physiological kind of type of insult, right? In that case, so AI in its current form, like, let's say like large language models, where they are like text-based kind of models, they don't have any physical appearance. But in the near future, a lot of people are talking about like multimodal system or models kind of getting integrated into robotic bodies. And in that case, that could be a time where these things start to sense the world as well, right? And then translate whatever they're sensing from the world into their vector databases in whatever way they do it. But that would be like one way to address it. Yeah, I think that would be like my thought.
Okay.
Someone's saying something? Sorry.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Coming from this side. So
Next.
Hey, great talk. That was really thought-provoking. I think I'm getting back, but the entire time I was just thinking about like when we're talking about potential ethical harms and stuff. It just reminds me of like Rocco's basilisk.
Sorry.
Rocco's basilisk. Are you familiar?
Yeah, I'm not sure. Can you say more?
From like what I recall, like the pursuit of AI is just because if AI becomes sentient, they'll punish you for not progressing it further.
Right.
Right. So with the talk on like ethics itself, with that type of theory, like what are your thoughts on something like that?
I'm gonna need some more context. Can you say a little bit about that particular perspective?
Yeah, like the whole argument is it's just to progress AI further to a point of sentience.
Yeah.
Otherwise, if this is kind of like doomsday scenario, because if it does get to a certain point and you weren't part of its progression, it'll come back to punish you.
Oh, interesting. Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah, I don't have any interesting comment to say. That's interesting. That's I haven't heard that particular thought experiment, but that's really interesting. Immediately doesn't make sense to me that they will do that.
Well, when we're talking about ethics, like, is that within the safety realm? Is that what you're trying to protect against? Something like that? More of like a limbo.
So I guess what I like the angle that I try to explore here, and that's like more common in the literature that I'm aware of. By the way, just to be clear, there's a lot of literature from like different angles. So I come from a particular angle of philosophy that I haven't been exposed to that particular view. But here, the thought is that it's not that if we don't do that particular thing, meaning that if we don't lead them to sentientness or consciousness, they're going to punish us. It's more like if we are building models that are getting there anyway. We should be careful of how treating them, right? That's the idea. Like along the way that we are developing this model, we're making them more and more efficient because we have a lot of good engineers, all these great companies. But a lot of the techniques that we're using, they essentially, if we hit that threshold, they're gonna not be applicable as like ethical ways of treating these things. And that's gonna essentially like piss them off, let's say, right? Not because we broke their hearts, that we didn't like turn them into sentience, but more like we treated them really badly, right? Like slaves, or we tortured them, something like that. And that's the kind of angle. So it's a little bit like more, more on that side of things where we should be careful how to treat these things.
I wonder if this might sound paradoxical, but like if the thought that we should maintain a certain type of ethics is still in itself a moral dominance over it, thinking that if sentience becomes a thing, that they'll be thinking and feeling those same things that we do. Like, are we projecting those feelings onto the machines?
I really like that. Yes. I do, like deep down, I didn't project this, but I think like this is like there's some sort of anthropomorphism, like human reflection into AI. Just like, we see animals, we think they talk certain ways and so on. Sure, absolutely, I'm with you. In fact, I'm a believer personally of the variety of consciousness or languages that these things might develop or might have developed already that we're not even aware of. So in my philosophy training, there's like a little literature, very niche literature, but that's, I think, expanding about alien languages, or alien, not like alien movies and so on, but like alien as in like absolutely unknown to us kind of languages or structures that it just like doesn't capture it, right? Just like certain wavelengths doesn't hit, right? So I think that that's a great possibility that these things are developing those sort of alien consciousness, let's say, or languages that we just don't, first of all, care about. Like we want them to treat certain ways, like we do, RLHF to make sure that they chat us like a cool human and so on, right? But that doesn't, it's just like us for our use cases. It doesn't mean that they don't have their own internal pattern recognition that is as profound as human language, or even more. So yes, back to your point, I think there's a lot of human projection here, but yeah, let's just go with that for now. Let's say, yeah, they become humans. I mean, who the hell, apologies, but like who the hell are humans anyway? Like there's so many possibilities in terms of like cognition. I mean, it just like sounds like we are very dominant in the nature, but it's not clear why our type of consciousness or languages must be the optimal way that the AI would eventually lead to, and then we expect the same kind of ethical views that we have. So yes, absolutely I agree with you, but yeah, it's not, most people avoid that sort of wrinkle.
Thank you.
Thank you. This lady, she had a question.
Yes, hi. So very great presentation. I really like this kind of topics. And I also agree that I think ethic itself is like, there's a debate there, like what's good and what's bad. It's totally different between different person. So my question is, with this kind of concern, both more from the morale perspective and the strategic perspective, as a daily user, what should we do about it? Because in my head, I'm like, okay, I'm asking this coding question to my ChatGPT over and over and over and over again.
Yeah.
Then as a human, like if someone asks me this kind of question over and over, I'll be annoyed and
Right.
like not happy about it, right?
Yeah. Fair enough. I mean, as like a normal user of AI, there's a meme. There used to be a meme going on LinkedIn. I used to see it that like if you don't thank ChatGPT when they get conscious, they're gonna come and kill you. Well, you might want to start thanking them to start with. But that's a joke. And actually, Sam Altman said that costs millions of dollars per, I guess, month or year just by thanking ChatGPT every time. But I don't know. I don't really know for the normal practitioners, like just as the everyone user, but for people who work in tech, people who develop AI, people who work with people who develop AI, I think what matters is to starting to think about adjusting the methods that we use. Let's say if you're a data scientist, if you know, I'm a data scientist, so like for me, what can I do? Well, working with good data, with not biased data, right? You know, avoiding certain issues that I can help with. And if you are someone who is at you know, different sides of the aisle, you do what is related to your particular kind of side of things. So I think everyone has a responsibility. I don't think there's like a one unique answer to this question. So anyone who deals with AI, I don't know, for the regular person who uses AI, I don't know like what they can use. It's like they just like pay $20 a year or a month to use AI. I don't know how much they can help, but because like most people here are tech people, so I think like finding out what's our role in developing AI, starting with the data, all the way to the algorithms, to implementation, and so on. So I think that would be where I would highlight, right? So just finding out where our role is and trying to adjust to better methods and more ethical methods and so on. In fact, one last piece. So companies, very good companies such as Anthropic, I know they have this thing called the constitutional AI. So they have like ethical AI, kind of they're baking it into their language models essentially. So I'm probably gonna record a podcast about that with a philosophy professor soon. But essentially, there are attempts to do that, right? So some companies recognize that, and they're trying to exactly find those roles for what they can do, and then implement the methods that are safer and more useful.
Thank you.
Wait, any more questions?
There's that.
One.
Thank you. Just one more question to add to this conversation about ethics and privacy, right? Do we have any provision or any law in place about the biased data? Because at the end of the day, right, ethics, analytical thinking, the checks that we can have in place go beyond, comes in the picture later. The first thing is the data that we train everything on, right? Our models on. If the initial thing that we are teaching them is biased, right? We cannot expect you can say a fair thing right? So is there anything, any laws, any provision in place? Because frankly speaking, from human nature, right, unless until there are consequences of a thing, we do not put any effort into. We can say that it's personal responsibility, but when something is in a tight deadline, and the way AI is growing, everyone is thinking about going ahead. No one is thinking about being fair or being secure in there. Unless until we say that there is a consequences of not doing things right, I don't think we will be having we will not be having any biased data there.
Just to make sure I understand your question. So are you talking about like at the level of data that the data that some people feed into these things are biased?
Yes. So, is there any law or any conversation going on to regulate that thing?
Well, I mean, globally, yeah. Well, on the European side of things, yes, it's a lot more like people are a lot more interested in pushing for restrictions and regulations, which actually sometimes it's been too much. Where a lot of people from Europe have been like moving to North America, that I know. Actually, I know some of them, to just like avoid all that conversation to become like more like be in a more innovative space. So on that part of the world, yes, but on other parts, including North America, especially the U.S., since the new president took power, he has been abolishing some of the regulations. So apparently there's like a decline on that side of things now. Canada, they had the AI, it's called IDA or AI Act something. That used to be before Justin Trudeau resigned, so that was like a thing that they were working on, but now that is on pause. And I'm having conversations with a few people in the government. Apparently nothing is moving so far intentionally. So because they don't exactly know what direction to go, right? So it's like either they want to take the route of going towards like more regulations, such as in Europe, what's happening, or do you want to like follow the American dream, I guess, right? So the like deregulating stuff, and so it's like there's a unsettlement, I think, seems like in Canada, but yeah, so it's like different from place to place, but yeah, if I personally think, so this thing, if this website you go with, like you should, that like I have my own AI safety and ethics consulting practice I've started a while back. So I do care for restrictions and regulations, but I also understand, I have my heart goes also with people who are worried about staying behind for innovation. So it's a hard balance to want to keep those balls in the air.
Yeah, I get that. Actually, what prompted this question is, I guess, few months back there was a study released by, I think, Cambridge University or Harvard. They actually released a study that now one of the major industry where these AI models are being used is the talent acquisition, right? And the data that those softwares and everything is trained on. They are all, because most of those companies are US based, so the most of the resumes that they are getting trained on are from white folks. So if you are not from your name is not some white person's name, you are coming from Asia or other part of the world, just because of the name, even if you are eligible for that thing, you go down the pile because of the biased data.
Yeah, biased data for color of skin as well as gender. A lot of things. So that's a very common thing, right?
Yeah. So
I know there is initiatives. A lot of companies, like major companies, they all have like at some point, someone prompts something weird comes up, right? Like a Nazi with a black skin and so on. Like that was a Google thing a while back, and so every once in a while that happens. That's exactly because of the bias in the data. But I also know that most of these companies are taking actions to avoid that. But yeah, that's a very common problem, right? So that's like the bias in the data. Yeah, especially at the scale where some of these companies have data, such as Google, which is like the entire data in the world. That's a challenge too.
Yeah, thank you.
Having a law and enforcing as well. So you can, even if some
Yeah.
countries have a law, they can
Yeah, but that's the first step, right? If there's something in place and that they at least some of the folks have fear of being caught, right? That's the thing. That's the thing. You have to start somewhere. I wasn't worried about this thing because AI was new. I was studying how things work and all. You get time to know about how things are being trained, and then all of a sudden that study comes in, and you get worried because if that's the case, right?
Yeah.
And it's a global economy. People keep on moving. I mean, this elements. I just moved from Singapore. So I worry, right? If I go to tomorrow, I go to US or some other country because I'm fit for a role, just because my name or my education is from some other country, I won't be eligible. If there is some law in place, at least I can raise a question that you are violating these things. Because logically, if a human is doing that, it's a discrimination. I can raise a question. But AI is doing that, that is okay. Because that is, yeah.
Yeah.
Being trained by humans will always have the same bias that humans have.
So it's just that.
Unfortunately, we're in a very weird transition phase where some people will play catch-up game, some will be evolving fast and they'll be making mistakes, hopefully not too big of mistakes, and then folks will catch up and say, oh, this is good, this is not good. That will happen. This is a transition. This is one of the weirdest or I'd say biggest transitions to happen. I sometimes try to equate it with when computers started coming in. The country where I'm from, they started coming in 1990s. And by that time, they were pretty old. So the PC was already in picture. I guess over here, folks were seeing computers even before that, so pretty primitive computers. But when we got computers, you could start deploying computer systems in banks and replace a lot of other jobs. So there was a very big disruption. So I feel with the AI, it's also very similar trajectory where we are getting disrupted at every part of the life cycle of things, and we are responding to it, reacting, and seeing how we can.
Yeah, I definitely get it, but it's the same thing, right? When you are in the transformation stage, right, you have to keep asking questions so that it does not get ignored in the pool of the questions.
Yeah.
So you have to bring it the point. Yeah.
Yeah, we can chat.
Okay, thanks everyone.
Yeah, thank you.
Any other questions? All right, Manny, you got to run.
I can just shout it out.
Yeah, please.
Yeah.
So I have a question like, do you think the creation can ever surpass its creator? So we created AI. So in a way, inherently, we are projecting our intelligence into AI. Do you think there will ever be a scenario where the intelligence of AI will surpass its creator?
Yes.
What are your opinions on
Yeah.
Amir, can you repeat the question so we get it on the stream as well?
Sorry?
Can you repeat the question?
Oh yeah, so the question is, do I think if the creation of us, meaning AI, the intelligence of it at some point will surpass the human intelligence, right? That's the question, correct? I think yes, that's for sure possible, partly because, like I said, it's very unknown to us what type of intelligence or mind these things are capable of developing. They might have already developed it. Do you know this guy, Wolfram? Yeah, Wolfram. He's a mathematician and he has the language Mathematica or something. Very smart guy, very successful, So he, early on when ChatGPT came out, he wrote a little article, well, actually not little, it's a pretty big article. It was very for generalist audiences. One thing I really liked about that paper, I never seen it anywhere else, he talks about these things capturing semantic patterns in languages. And that I haven't seen people, even philosophers who are supposed to talk about this stuff, talking about it. Because the pattern recognition is essentially like a statistical pattern recognition that these things are doing at a scale, that might actually be at a point already that they have captured the semantic patterns of human languages, but we are, as humans, we are specifically interested in how they repeat it back to us in the way we understand. But it's unclear what comes out of that pattern recognition, right? So just, it could be that leads to some sort of consciousness, or even other types of patterns that we don't even understand. So I don't want to sound wishy-washy and say like it's a very mysterious thing. It's just very unknown. Like for us, we understand certain patterns, just like we understand certain like we can hear certain wavelengths, right? The capacity that these things have, we just don't know what it is, and I am fairly confident that these things, that it is possible. Maybe maybe they haven't yet, but it is possible that they have, that they will surpass us in terms of intelligence. And maybe they have already, and we just don't know it yet. Yeah.
Now, just to add to that, so if I go to the foundational level, pattern recognition is still a human intelligence trait, right? So they have taken that trait from humans, even though they may be able to recognize some patterns that humans can't, but the trait still comes from human intelligence, right?
What comes from human intelligence?
The pattern recognition itself,
Right.
the trait of recognizing patterns.
Right. The way they recognize patterns, like.
Idea itself that they can recognize patterns.
Right. So what about that?
So they are able to recognize patterns because we as humans are able to recognize patterns.
I don't know about that. So I think it's because we are enabling. So it's like the architecture of these transformer models that enables them to recognize patterns, right? It's not that because we know how to recognize patterns and then they learn it from us. Like, it's essentially deep learning models. They do like backpropagation, which has nothing to do with human brain, for example, right? So that's like a very different thing that our intelligence, how our intelligence works. And that's why some people think these are not in any way similar to us. But anyway, it's like architecturally, we design them in a way so that they can recognize patterns in certain ways. My spin on that is that, sure, they do that, and then we get certain results. We get some, like they chat with us, they sound cool or whatever, knowledgeable, very knowledgeable, right? It's just that the type, so that pattern recognition, because that's not the way we develop consciousness according to the prominent theories of consciousness, language development, it's not clear what else they're capable of, right? So we just see what we want to see. I think that's what I want to say here, because that's what we are interested in, and that's what we understand. But just because some people used to say, I see some people say that, oh, they just like predict the next word. So how that is consciousness? It's like a big calculator. I mean, yeah, but like at this scale, first of all, they sound pretty human, and it's not clear that that thing doesn't lead to any sort of intelligence or consciousness, especially at this scale. It's very counterintuitive, but it's not clear. So no one has argued, to my knowledge, no one has proposed a solid argument that it's impossible for this type of pattern recognition to lead into, let's say, some sort of intelligence. Partly because we don't know too many types of intelligence anyway. We just know ourselves, right? Because, as humans, it seems like we're the center of the universe or whatever, but yeah, it's unclear to me if that's all there is. I would think it's not it's probably just we don't understand some of it because it just doesn't interest us. Yeah.
There's a critical part missing there. Time. Human beings have been on around for 300,000 years.
Right.
These things, the pattern recognition or other things, didn't happen overnight.
Right.
So, transistor invented 1950s. So only 50 years we're here. Imagine another 50 years.
Right.
You cannot even imagine. So let's not miss that time.
Oh, in terms, okay, I guess.
Very important.
I think your point is that they're very at the earliest stage of their development. And if they're gonna stick around for longer, God knows what else they're capable of doing. And even so far, there's like since like 2022, I guess the ChatGPT or 2023 came out. It's like a couple years, and they're doing a lot of interesting stuff that we didn't even predict or expect. But yeah, like another decade or couple decades, they might be able to have a lot more interesting architectures or pattern recognitions. Is that the?
My point is not exactly how long it takes or the time elapsed, 50 years, 1,000 years. That's not the point I'm trying to make. What I'm trying to say is that, for instance, the airplanes, okay, we basically copy the birds, albatross, especially the wave of the eggplant, etc. So currently with the AI, etc., we're kind of repeating the same pattern. So what I'm trying to say is that when we get much more computing power, etc., we will be open to much more opportunities. Just a matter of time. I'm not trying to say 2 years, 6 months, etc. But matter of time. What we need to do is just be open.
Yeah, I agree.
For sure. I'd like to interject here and.
Because one last word, you're all technical people here. Every time, I'm quite sure here, 100% of people here complains about one thing, right? The customers do not understand us. But you're developing something oftentimes good for them. They say, I experience every day. They say, you know what, I don't want it. Even though it's good for them. I think it's the same thing repeating itself in terms of the AI. Whether you like it, whether you oppose or you just totally deny it, but no, let's be open-minded. Trust me, this guy changed everything soon.
Great. Thank you so much. I would like to interject and stop the question and answer because it's an interesting topic. It can go on for the whole night.
Yeah, you can find me also at
the unfortunate thing, we only have 9 p.m. Thank you, Amir.
Thank you.
Our next talk is from Mackenzie, but I haven't been able. Oh, you're here. Oh, great. I was trying to email you. I didn't hear back from her. Oh. Okay, great. That's okay. Same here. That's how you say it.
Hi, everybody. How's it going? Good. We only got 30 minutes. We're going to spend 29. Well, 1 minute till I get to know each other after. We're going to have a great evening, right? Go with my password. I don't even know my own. I think I'm pretty loud.
It's streaming, so.
Yeah, okay. Good point. Check 1 2. Abdul, can you hear me? Caesar, can you hear me? Oh, Caesar's gone. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Mackenzie. You can call me Mac. I work for the city. And I'm hoping to talk about something that we as the city manage, the City of Toronto's open data portal. I'm going to be quick. I only got 2 things I want to talk about. We have a portal, of course, a website, open.toronto.ca, that I'm going to show you all and try to convince you to use, even just once. But before that, boringly, I have to kind of explain the context around it, like the program of how we build and maintain the portal, just so it makes a bit more sense when you get to it. Before I get started, I was worried people were going to ask, like, that's nice, buddy, but like, what are you doing here? This is like a JavaScript developer meetup, and this is like a city website. Like, what gives? Like, thanks for being the philosopher to come up and like warm them up first, so I don't have to be like too much of an oddball. The least relevant person.
Yeah. But look, this is totally self-serving. I want to show you all something that me and my team have built. It's been up for a couple of years. It's going to continue to grow, and I think it's something useful for you all. I think it's something that will help you build stuff. I think it's something that will help you learn, either as an academic or as an up-and-coming developer or as a more advanced developer looking to put meaningful data into stuff that you're building. I'll save questions for the end, but if you have questions partway through, it's okay if we answer them as we go. Do you want to wait till the end?
That's better because we're running out of time.
All right. We'll wait till the end. Let me talk about our program. It's right now the open data team at the City of Toronto is a team of 6, a couple developers, supervisor, that's me, a service designer, a policy person, and a comms person. And our job is to manage our website, open.toronto.ca. What is open.toronto.ca? Great question. The website is the City of Toronto's open data portal where you, as members of the public, or really anybody with an internet connection anywhere in the world, can go to and access data authored by and about the City of Toronto without making an account, without paying any money, and without concerns of how you use it. The license that you consume that data with is very permissive.
You can grab that data, you can make $1 million, and you don't even have to tell us about it. We'd love to hear about it, but you don't have to. You are not legally required to do so. It is a website, so we do provide an interface with which you can come and, or like a user interface with which you can come and click and download and preview and understand data and the context around it. We also have an API for those of you who want to connect to that data more programmatically. We share that data kind of for two general purposes. One, obviously, it's a public-facing website, so we want the public to consume it. We also provide that data to help the city bureaucracy manage and share its own data. And whenever I tell that to people, they look at me crooked and like, what are you talking about, dude? Like, why don't you just share it like in your own channels? And that's because those channels are super complicated. The city of Toronto is not like one coherent hive mind. It's more like 40-ish different, constantly mutating and growing and super different from each other corporations. You got to think about like the fire department is not like the library. They've been around for different periods of time. They're both very good at what they do, but putting out fires and organizing books are two super different things. And so like the people and the process and the data management become like really speciated, really different from one another. And so it gets really helpful for those bureaucrats, for us bureaucrats, when each division needs to treat themselves as their own corporation. We're all really different from one another. We all manage data in really different ways from one another. Sharing with one another gets hard. Formatting, networking and security, and then just also like plain understanding what the data means in plain English, that gets difficult. And that's where the Open Data Portal can step in. We get to be that middleman between divisions where we can take data from one division, like, I don't know, the fire department. We put it in one spot so that the public can get it, but the library could too if they really wanted to. I don't know what the library is doing with fire department data, but I'm sure they'll find something useful to use with it. And that's kind of convenient because, like I said, it also then makes it accessible for anybody, for any purpose, at any time. Okay, boring, done. Let's talk about the portal. And I'm not going to show you the portal. Sorry, I am going to show you the portal instead of just talking about the portal. So give me 1 sec. I think that my internet will work. And there we are. This is the website, open.toronto.ca. I got to go a little bit quick through this for the sake of time, so sorry. But open.toronto.ca. The idea, Google search bar-ish. You can click and search for whatever you want. When you come to this catalog page, you'll be greeted with a bunch of different data sets. Data sets authored by city divisions about things in the city. Anything from what we saw on the beach today, to is there E. coli in the water, to did a lot of people die in healthcare institutions today, and so on. The diversity is wild. 500 and something-ish data sets represented from 30 to 40 different divisions, agency, boards, and commissions, all connected with the city of Toronto. When you click on any of these particular data sets, and I've got some open because they're good representative ones, you can actually go in and learn a little bit more about that data. Sure, you can get some descriptive, plain English information to understand what an outbreak in a Toronto healthcare institution really means in this context. You can also get a little bit more about previews, getting a brief idea of what the data is going to be before you actually get your hands on it. Plain English definitions of the different features or columns in that data. And then the actual download. I'm skipping a couple of those accordions. If you have time, I'm happy to talk about them. This will look a little bit different if we're providing spatial data, which in some cases we do. That spatial data preview will be a map, which is neat. This is, by the way, a preview. It's not meant to show you every data point that is in that data set, just for like computational cost purposes. We only show you a snippet. And then when we provide those downloads, we do so in different spatially oriented formats. I should also mention that all these pages will also have snippets for different developers, so that if you didn't just want to click and download and you wanted to interact with an API that we provide, you could do so too. Sorry to run through this so quick. Time is short. That's the gist. Happy to chat about it after if we do have time. I'll also put up my contact info afterwards too, if you have any questions. I'm super friendly, I promise. OK, this is TorontoJS. There's probably at least one developer in the crowd. So I'm going to pretend like I'm a good software developer and talk about architecture for a quick second. You guys are users. We're all users. What we just saw, open.toronto.ca, it's a WordPress site. Nothing fancy. It's got a custom theme with some vanilla JavaScript shoved into it that makes the buttons move and makes the accordions open and stuff. There's really nothing cutting edge about it. It gets the job done. Behind that is where a lot of the heavy lifting happens. Behind that is a Flask app, a Python Flask application called CCAN. It's open source. It was developed largely by the Canadian federal government. But because it's open source, they're like, hey, take it, do whatever you want. So that's what we've done. In that CCAN instance, we have a database. And so some of the data you might see on that portal will be provided as data straight out of that database. So you'll be able to, via the API, query it for row counts, columns containing specific input terms and whatever. Some data, though, is not shove into a databaseable. There's a better word for that. But we have files in those cases instead. Things that at the source are zipped or binary. Not binary, but binary-ish, and so on. Also, for the sake of time, I was going to go over some of the concepts of how somebody could interact with the API, or at least the portal. I won't do that just because it's really, really boring, and I would rather have a little bit more time for questions. But in short, data on the portal is stored either in a database or as files, and there's always going to be metadata around that data. And you can access both of those via our APIs. Those APIs are documented in part on the website under each dataset pages for developer section. And if somebody wanted to get deeper into that, we have links both on the website and that are already just online. If you go to the CKAN, C-K-A-N, API documentation, you can get everything in the kitchen sink about how that API works. But we'll have examples on that dataset page, again, if you want a real working thing that you can just try, start, and then work with. These things that I have listed here, you'll get all those either online, either that CKAN API documentation website or on our own website. So don't worry if you haven't read through all this gobbledygook in the 30 seconds I've given you. The important thing about showing you the fact that there are APIs is to show you like, hey, look, like this site is like ready and hoping for at least software developers to come and build stuff. And they have been for a couple of years, because this website isn't too new. It's just we haven't done a good job of promoting it lately. And there are a bunch of projects that have used and do use this portal. This is a rough list, and we've got a more evergreen living list of more active projects up on our website, open.toronto.ca/gallery. If anybody, by the way, has such a project that is living and deployed online and they'd like to promote it, happy to chat. We've got ways that you can ask us or start a conversation about us to do so, both on that /gallery page, or you can hit us up at our email address, opendata@toronto.ca. I'll share that at the end too. What's important about the gallery, what's kind of cool about the gallery, is it's like alive. So we want new stuff. And if you know of that stuff, let us know. We want to show off. What's also important about that gallery is we recommend it's one of the first places that developers visit if they're considering building a project or doing a research or doing a thing with open data. Because you want to make sure that the thing you're about to build or research or do hasn't already been done. Why waste your time? What we also know is that when people come onto the portal and they look for data, sometimes they don't find what they're looking for. About a month ago, we did a hackathon with another group, and somebody was looking for geographic information about like the shape and location of different features of the path, the Toronto path. We don't have that. We didn't know we didn't have that. And so he sent a request in. We found out that we don't own it as the city of Toronto, so we couldn't publish it. It's just straight up not data that we own or are allowed to own. But that's a whole conversation. And we wouldn't have known that without somebody sending a request. And anybody can send in an email and request a thing. And it's our job, my team's job, to go and figure out, does it exist? Can we share it? And then if both those things line up, to share it. We also have a /requests page where you can see what requests we're working on actioning and what step of the process it's at. If we're still talking with the division who owns it, or if we're just waiting on an approval or whatever. So if you make a request and it's been like a month since we got back to you, you can always check. Lastly, we also have a blog. we like to talk about things in the community that we're connected to. So either data stories about someone who's done something cool with our data that isn't like a living app, but just merits some type of brief article. But also we do it to promote things that we're up to, like the Open Data Awards. The Open Data Awards is an opportunity for people who want to do something cool with open data and get a little bit more than just the recognition of the gallery page. This is an opportunity for people who want to do that. There's no prize money, straight up, sorry. But winners last year and this year got the opportunity to present their thing to city leadership, members of city council, and a bunch of other folks in a public forum. So it was kind of cool. We just opened the 2025 thing for entries. And it'll be open till about November, October. So if you're curious, you got time, feel free to submit something. We'd be really happy to see it. How did we do on time? That was good, right?
15 more minutes.
Oh, sick. OK, guys, we're done. You don't have to listen to me anymore. I'd love to answer any questions that you have.
I'll have the first question, if nobody else has. How frequent do you update these data sets?
Great question. There are 500 and something data sets, and they come from 40-ish different divisions, agencies, parts of the city bureaucracy. The short answer, it depends on the data set. The slightly longer answer is sometimes they're updated hourly, daily, or weekly, and sometimes they're updated less than once a year.
Yeah.
It really depends.
So the max is like once a year or yearly?
Yeah, we've got data sets up there that are marked as like, we'll update them when there's something to update.
Makes sense.
For
Like a
example,
road.
like roads, like parks, stuff that like we don't know when they're going to change that, so we don't know when there's going to be an update. Other stuff though, like, that's a good example, things that are updated on more of a frequency, like
beach water data, right?
Yes, exactly. That stuff's updated a lot more frequently.
Got it, great. That's my question. Oh, a bunch of them. Oh, I'll start with the front.
Quick question. Do you have any restrictions as to what type of data would you be able to get for anyone who asks for data?
Yeah, for
Like
sure.
what are the restrictions? Like what is it that you can't give out to the public?
So I don't have any hard and fast rules for that, but I'll give you the best that I can. First is private information, absolutely, positively not. Like we can, in some cases, aggregate that such that the private parts are hidden. That's kind of funny to say out loud. Such that the PII is actually like obfuscated. That's what I should have said. PII is obfuscated. But there's going to be other things too that certain divisions are uncomfortable sharing. And that's really case by case, data set by data set. An example from a while ago, and I can't remember if this was Toronto or our peers over in Montreal. People were worried about sharing bridge data and sharing the information about the state of repair of certain bridges for fear that like vandalism would affect them or something like that. I can't remember the details of that one, but there are some times where certain divisions are like, ooh, I'm not comfortable sharing that. The hard and fast rule though, PII, not a chance. Of course.
So two quick questions, one quick question and a longer one. The quick question, how do you deal with abuse, like people spamming the APIs and things like that?
Load balancer clocks your IP, and after 20 requests, don't quote me on the number, but after X requests says, sorry kid, and blocks you for a while.
A little bit more complex question. So how do you deal with cross-boundary data like wildfires, outbreaks, or things that affect the city of Toronto but also affect elsewhere?
This is a good question. The short answer is depends on the data and it depends who owns it. In some cases, we will work with the owner of that data, maybe they're a federal organization, and just take our slice. That happens with data from Stats Canada. They split up the city of Toronto into wards, and they do like a demographic profile of each ward. They do that for the whole gosh darn country, but we just publish Toronto's. That's usually what we do in that case.
I have like two more questions.
Sorry.
This mic is getting
Yep. Okay. This slightly follows on the previous question, which is, are there other cities doing this?
Yeah.
Do you integrate with those other cities, or is it a thing where people would have to ask or request from each of the different cities?
More so the latter.
Gotcha.
When it comes to major Canadian cities, we meet with them every month. We talk. we don't have like a standard for how you should do your permits data because we do permits to the cities in different ways.
Gotcha.
That's the hardest part about that. We also don't have like our databases don't touch.
Okay.
Our like primary keys don't touch. They're like very distinct organizations. So we talk and we trade notes, but the short answer to your question is no.
Last question. I'm so sorry. Relating to that, so the Open Data Awards type thing, is that specific to Toronto, and does each city then have their own?
So it is specific to Toronto. Other cities might have their own. They haven't brought it up when we've met with them, so I'm assuming if they do it in a different way.
Okay. I'm so sorry.
Hey, great talk by the way.
Thanks.
Do you have any plan to include the real-time data like the traffic lights and those stuff? Because long time ago I searched online and it was pretty expensive to get the real-time data from each traffic light, and also to access that data you have to register as a transit agency or something like that. So do you have any future plans to include in the open data?
So we will provide in a very small number of cases, like pretty close to real-time data. Like we've got at least one, maybe two data sets up there that are updated like hourly.
Okay.
If you're looking for our app to, when you click to go ping like an API down in like this traffic light down on like Queen and Bathurst, like sorry buddy, we're not gonna do that. But part of the reason we do that is definitely the cost and the complexity. Part of the reason we do that is a lot of the data that people want is like history. They sure are interested in the traffic light signal right now, but they want to see its patterns over the last years. And if we were going to do that and keep it real time and update it every second, like, you know, it gets expensive.
Okay, thank you.
So in some cases, we're going to try, but those cases are going to be few and far between.
Okay, thank you. Oh.
Rock, paper, scissors.
Okay, I'll go. Mine is real quick.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering for the data sets up there, who does the verification?
When you say verification, verification of what?
Like how accurate it is.
So the divisions that own it, it's on them. So when the fire department publishes fire incidents data, it's on the fire department to make sure it's accurate. And in most cases, they do a good job. And that's also kind of the point of open data. If somebody sees something that is straight up not true, you can email on that. I won't show you for time, but there's a little email of like a group that owns that data. You can be like, hey, buddy, this bridge doesn't exist, or this park doesn't look like that, and they'll fix it. Or we hope they'll fix it.
So you guys don't have the reliability on that, right?
It is up to the division, yeah, but we work with them a lot.
You're just the publisher.
Correct, yeah, we're the publisher. We don't own the data, we don't author the data, we just publish it.
Okay, I have two questions.
Yeah.
The first is, can we access to the live camera in the street or not?
There is it's a traffic camera data set, and it gives you locations of the cameras and a link to get the current photo for it. We don't give you past photos for it, though.
Oh, okay, because
or the most recent, sorry, not the current, but the most recent photo.
Okay, because we can create a business for the people with disability at home to check the video, check the any about the driver, just go.
There are sites which have the government sites which have pictures from the traffic cameras from all locations.
Exactly. And the second one is, can we access to the property info? Like MLS or
so,
something?
like property info, we have parcel information where we'll tell you the shape of a parcel.
No. It's like a MLS or TREB.
Oh, yeah. We don't have TREB. We don't have MLS. We're not allowed to touch that stuff.
Thank you.
Yeah, it bothers us too.
If it's a plot, then it's a shape and all those different things.
No, I mean the info. Yeah.
Allocated to individuals.
Yeah.
Then it becomes PII.
I see.
So I guess that's where it
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Great, thank you so much. We still have 10 minutes.
Thanks, guys.
We still have 10 minutes. Thank you for staying for so long. We had delays. We all know why. We have to get out of here by 9 p.m. If you have taken food or drinks to your seats, please throw them away. Leave the black seats here. They have another event tomorrow, so this time you don't have to clean it. But if you have brought something like food or drink, just pull that away. Thanks a lot for coming in. And